From Bella Vista Community Television, The City with Damon Wallace. The City with Damon Wallace, a program exploring the happenings in Bella Vista and our surroundings. And now, here's Damon.
Good morning and welcome to The City. I'm Damon Wallace, your host. We're going to be talking today with both circuit judge candidates for Benton County. The early voting starts on February 18th. The final election day for them is going to be March the 3rd. So it will be on the Super Tuesday, normal primary day for most people. This is actually their election day. So my first guest is Christine Horwart, and good to have you with us, Christine.
Thank you, Damon. Appreciate it.
Okay, so Christine is a candidate for circuit court judge. And then we have some different races going on because we have the circuit court, but we also have the district court. I interviewed both those candidates back in December, so that's a different court system. So tell us a little bit about what the circuit court does.
All right, so a circuit judge is going to hear cases that are criminal, civil, and from those you're also going to have domestic cases, probate, and the criminal cases are of a felony level, where in district court they are misdemeanors and they are of a lower monetary level for the civil cases. So that's kind of the difference.
Okay, so talking about your early years, so you went to law school in Nebraska.
That's right, I did. I grew up in Lincoln, Nebraska, and I could not take one more winter up there. So after law school, I came to Bella Vista, Arkansas. And I have been here for 25 years, practicing law, primarily in Bentonville, and primarily in family law over the last 20 years or so.
Okay, so you kind of morphed from juvenile cases to more domestic cases.
I did.
Over that time.
Yes, when I first started, I did a lot of juvenile work, and as my practice grew and my professionally, I started doing more family law. I had a stint in criminal law, but then went primarily to family law, which is a lot of divorces, adoptions, guardianships, those types of cases.
Okay, so this circuit judge position, it's actually a new position that's been created.
That's correct. The legislature created this position in Benton County because of the increased population here, and the number of cases going through circuit court is to such a level that we really needed another circuit judge so that we can expeditiously handle all the cases that are coming before the circuit court judges.
Okay, so what kind of domestic cases, you mentioned that's one of the areas that are covered, so what kind of domestic cases do the circuit court judges actually hear?
They hear divorces, they hear paternity cases, adoptions, guardianships, that can range from custody battles, child support issues. All of those encompass family law in general.
Okay, so talking a little bit about that, it used to be presumptive that when you had a divorce and there were kids involved, that the mother retained custody of the kids while the dad kept working, but that's changing a little bit, isn't it?
It's changed tremendously since I first started practicing. There is now a presumption in Benton County that the court should consider joint custody. And that never occurred when I first started 25 years ago. So there's been a real shift in culture and in law in looking at parents and their abilities to care for their children. And I think it's fantastic.
Okay. And you have, now you were telling me that Arkansas used to be a state that didn't have a lot of alimony cases. But that's changing too a little bit.
Damon, it has, and primarily in Benton County. Again, when I first started 25 years ago, alimony or spousal support was not very prevalent. But again, because of the increased population here in Benton County, spousal support is much more prevalent. You're going to see it in a lot more cases because there's more income that is in Benton County, and you have a lot more parents that are at home rearing children and foregoing their careers. And so it creates a bit of an imbalance that the courts have to address.
Okay. And we know that a lot of the divorce cases, they can be quite contentious. How do you deal with that on a daily basis?
They can be, but over the 25 years that I've practiced, I understand people are coming to you at one of the most difficult times in their lives. And you have to understand that these are good people going through a rough time. If you get them through the system as quickly as you can, with as least amount of conflict as you can, you're going to have the best opportunity for success for these folks going down the road in the future. And I'll tell you, Damon, some of my favorite days are when I see old clients and they come back and they're so happy. They're in such a better place in their lives, and I was able to be a part of that. And so that's very rewarding to me.
Yeah. And with so many divorces in the country today, not just in Arkansas, but just around the country, a lot of kids are living with one biological parent, and the other one's usually paying child support. There's some child support changes coming, aren't there?
There's dramatic changes that are coming. They have not yet been fully approved, but within this year for sure, the entire calculation or formula to calculate child support will be modified. And so that's going to change a lot going forward. But again, they haven't made that final determination, so I can't really go through a formula with you at this point because it's not finalized yet.
Okay. We mentioned probate, and a lot of our audience here in Bella Vista are older. They have things that they're going to leave to their children and stuff. Explain a little bit about what the probate procedure is.
So probate is designed to convey one's estate to their beneficiaries. There are certain ways to circumvent probate in terms of having a trust, and having a trustee then convey your property to your beneficiaries as you designate. But let's say you pass away and you have a home, and you've left that home to your two children. One of those children or some other executor will be named, and that executor then will take your will through probate, and the circuit court will then allow for the legal procedure to have the property sold, proceeds divided, or otherwise conveyed to the beneficiaries pursuant to the last will and testament of the decedent.
Okay. The home, we were talking about this the other day, is that the home has to actually change title, and so the circuit court gets involved in that. How does that happen? What is the process?
So that happens through probating the will, and then orders that are entered that allow the property to be sold and conveyed to the beneficiaries.
Okay. And we were talking that the things that have to go through probate are actually things that have a title change, except for automobiles.
That's correct. That's correct. You can convey title otherwise to an automobile. A lot of people will leave their property by virtue of some sort of beneficiary designation, say through life insurance or payment on death on bank accounts. So there are ways to convey your estate without having to go through probate, and that's normally what I try to guide people through that process, because it's easier on everyone and less costly to the estate.
Okay, so probate, because you're getting a trustee involved, and because the court is involved, you're going to have some extra fees. There's some living trust that you can put some of this property in to help avoid that, isn't that right?
That's true. So you could set up a trust instead of having your property go through the probate system to change title, and then the trustee, pursuant to the terms of the trust, could convey the property as the decedent had designated.
Okay, so what happens if a will, okay, so a lot of people, they don't even have a will, which is unfortunate, but if you have a will, what happens when it becomes contested?
Well, let's say someone leaves their estate to their two children, and the two children decide they want to argue over how mom divided up the property. One beneficiary wants to contest the will. That's a situation where that beneficiary is going to have to prove that maybe mom was not competent when the will was made, or for some other reason that the beneficiary designation is not correct. And that would be a job for the circuit judge to make that determination whether that beneficiary would prevail under those circumstances.
Okay, so you have, for instance, a shyster who comes in and gets mom or dad to sign over a will or sign over the property to them or leave it in their will, change their trust or something like that to benefit them, and it kind of excludes the family. And I'm sure you would see some cases like that. How does the court handle those?
So it's going to be the same type of situation where you're going to have a circuit judge who's going to more than likely hear the family coming in contesting the will because of the circumstances under which this person came in to get mom or dad to leave them their estate.
Okay. And you haven't, so you have some experience filling in for some circuit court judges, is that right?
That's correct. Over the years, I have had the opportunity to fill in for some of my circuit court judges if there's been a conflict or an illness, and I've always been very proud of that opportunity.
Okay. Well, Christine, it's good to have you here with us today. And I want to tell our viewers again, early voting starts on February 18th. And the final election day for all of our judge candidates is on March 3rd. Again, theirs does not hold off till November. It is on March 3rd. When we come back from our break, we're going to interview Tony Noblin, who is also running for that circuit judge candidate position in Benton County. So stay tuned.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it. Great job.
You're watching The City. We'll be right back.
Say again. Okay. Yeah.
Welcome back. Here's Damon and his guest.
And welcome back to the city. I'm Damon Wallace, and we're again talking to our circuit judge candidates. This is Tony Noblin with me now. And Tony, good to have you on the show.
Yes, thanks for having me, Damon.
Okay, so Tony, tell us a little bit about your experience coming up through the ranks to start running for this position.
Sure. Well, my experience is a little bit different than most. First I was raised here in Benton County. I graduated from Rogers High School. I've lived here for 40 years. I know that doesn't entitle me to anything, but I have been part of the growth, and I am a product of Benton County. After high school, I just, college wasn't on my radar, so I joined the military. I joined the Air Force, and they sent me to Lackland Air Force Base, and then they sent me to RAF Chicksands in England. Taught me Morse code, and I did my job from in a building with no windows, and that's where I spent the rest of my tour.
Did you get in any fights with those Army people?
Well, when I was stationed at a place called Corey Station, and there were Army, Navy, Marines, so I was there with a bunch of different branches. We all got along. They're all great folks.
Oh, so you went to England. How long were you there?
I was there for 2.5 years.
Okay, and then when you left there, you came back and joined the Rogers Police Department?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay, what did you do there?
Well, I started in patrol, and I worked there a couple years, and then I was promoted to detective in narcotics. And I worked that position for 2 years, and I grew my hair out, and I had long hair and a beard, and eventually I was promoted to sergeant, so I was back in patrol for about a year. And then I was moved over to narcotics, and eventually I was the supervisor for the narcotics division.
And you actually showed me a picture when you were undercover where you had your mullet and everything.
I did, yeah. And I missed that thing. I hear they're coming back, but my wife won't let me do that. So,
and you were also on the DEA task force here in Rogers.
Yes, and those were simultaneous positions. So when I was in narcotics, I was with the 19th Judicial District Task Force, so that covered Benton and Carroll County. And I was also with the DEA task force. That was federal credentials. We could go anywhere we wanted. furthermore, I was also on the SWAT team as well. So we wore a bunch of different hats while I was doing that.
There's
job.
a lot of people that, so some people are actually able to go to college right out of high school, and then others go to work or go into the military. So you were with the Rogers PD for a while before you decided I'm going to start into community college, didn't you?
Right. Well, I was working my way through the community college, and even when I got hired as a police officer, I was enrolled in community college. I mean, it was there. It was great. It was an opportunity. But as I was an officer, I really kind of sped it up. So I worked my way through community college, and then I received my associate's degree, and then went to John Brown University and received my bachelor's degree. And I graduated in 2000 from John Brown University.
Okay, and so after that, you weren't satisfied.
Yeah,
and
right.
So decided to go into law.
Yeah, and that was a real non-traditional approach. When I decided to go to law school, and I had a long conversation with my wife, and we put pencil to paper, and we realized we could do it. We could get it done. But I had a mortgage, a wife. I had a 2-year-old and a dog named Sheriff Buford T. Justice. And we put all that together and decided we could do it, and we did. So, and 3 years later, I graduated law school and began my practice.
Well, that's great. And what year was that?
That was 2006.
Okay. Buford T. Justice.
Yeah,
the dog.
that's right.
And you took it pretty hard when he passed away, didn't you?
I did. He was 16 when he passed away. Yeah.
Wow. And so let's talk a little bit about the court system. So we found out earlier that the circuit court deals with some family issues, but it also does a lot of criminal stuff.
Sure.
That seems like what a lot of your career has been dealing with. So explain a little bit about what the circuit court actually does on that.
The circuit court, it has 5 divisions, and really I call them subject matters, but they're called divisions through the rule. But it's civil, criminal, juvenile, probate, and domestic relations. Those are, and it's civil or circuit court is a court of general jurisdiction. So any case will fit into one of those 5 areas. And when I graduated law school and began practicing, initially I wanted to be a prosecutor, but I was law clerking for what would wind up to be my law partner. And I really enjoyed civil. I enjoyed real estate. I still did criminal work, but contracts, businesses, probate, wills and trust is what I really handled, and that's where I kind of grew my practice. Was in all those areas, several different areas, domestic relations as well. So I just made sure that I had a mix of everything,
Okay. Talking about the criminal cases that do come before the circuit court. Now, when we were talking to the district judge candidates, they mentioned that if a case goes before them and they're not happy with the verdict that comes out, they can appeal that to the circuit court.
The district court, they hear typically traffic tickets, DWIs, some assault cases, misdemeanor, right, and then limited civil cases. Well, if they don't like the verdict in district court, they can automatically appeal to circuit court. And the reason is, one of the reasons is because you don't have an opportunity for a jury trial in district court. So the appeal is called de novo. It's Latin for, it's automatic. It doesn't have to be approved. It just happens. There's a process you have to do, but there's no judge on the other end that's going to recommend that it be moved to circuit court. It just happens.
Okay. Since this is a new position, the courthouse that you think that you're going to be working out of, the courtroom, doesn't really have a jury box, does it?
It does not. It does not.
And so what would happen then if you were on a case that required a jury?
So if, I think it would be good to know that, first, it does not have a jury box. But there were in 2018, there were only 16 jury trials that occurred. Now, I'm sure there were plenty of jury trials on the books, but really only 16 occurred, and there was just a few more in 2019. So ultimately, if that judge, who doesn't have a jury box and has that small courtroom, needed to have a jury trial, it's possible that they could switch courtrooms with another judge temporarily until, of course, they're working on this situation right now, and they're doing a good job, but it will take a while to determine, where our new facilities or improved facilities perhaps will be.
Where are the circuit judge, or where are the circuit court courtrooms at right now?
Yes, there are three of the judges hear cases in the actual courtroom, or in the
county courthouse.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay.
And there's another court across the street in the old post office. There's another really on the other side of the square in Bentonville, both in Bentonville, and then there's one by the jail. So currently we have 6 divisions. 3 of them are heard in the courthouse, venues that is, and there are 3 outside of the courthouse.
Okay. Then when we talk about going on to the probate side, like we were talking about a little bit earlier, what kind of cases have you seen most common in Benton County? As
far as probate, generally if you have a will, it has to be probated. And there are ways to get around that through beneficiary deeds and payable upon death. But if you have a will, or if you don't have a will, there still has to be a probate, and that's where a circuit judge comes in and manages that. And ideally, with probate, if you're probating a will, the statutes are typically designed for the creditors, right? You want to make sure that the creditors get paid. The creditors then get paid through the court process, and then what's left over will go to the heirs, whether they're named or not, whether they have a will or not. It's generally the same procedure. If you have a will, you get to determine who gets your proceeds. If you don't, then it goes through intestate succession, and that is statutory.
Okay. Explain a little bit about that.
Intestate succession, if you were to pass away, generally your estate goes to your children. Now, if you're married, then if it's joint, then it would go to, it would just kind of, the interest would swell into the surviving spouse. And then if your children were no longer, if they predeceased you, then perhaps the proceeds would go to your parents. So there's a hierarchy, and all that is lined out very clearly in the statute. If you do not have a will. If you have a will, then generally it goes to the folks that you identify as your heirs.
So the circuit judge position is a service position?
Yes. Yeah, and it is. When I was a police officer, I saw several different, I went to several different jurisdictions and met with several different judges, and at times you realize that perhaps this particular judge, and I promise not in this area, we got great judges in this area, but perhaps sometimes you meet a judge and you're like, wow, you really, it's tough. You really probably have been here a little too long, okay? And this judge position is a service position, and don't let anyone tell you different. And me, I'm an attorney, right? And an attorney is a service position as well, but it's for money. So I've always made sure to keep involved in the community. So, I'm a Rotarian, I'm a past president. I was with a president of Friends of Hobbs. I'm a Rogers Planning Commissioner presently. I was a member of the Small Business Council. I was vice chair for the drug-free Benton County. And so my service didn't really start when I decided it was time to run for judge. I've been involved the entire time.
Okay, well, got a lot of good information. We do want to encourage our viewers to definitely get out and vote. If you have friends that don't know what the differences between the district court judge, circuit court judge are, the December episode of The City has that on. We interviewed the district court judges, and then have your friends and stuff tune into this one. You can catch it on the Cox AT&T UVerse and also on YouTube. And so, Tony, good to have you with us today, and we look forward to seeing you next month in The City.
Thank you.
You've been watching The City from our studio in the highlands of Bella Vista. If you have topics you would like to see us explore, just let us know. Thank you for tuning in. This has been a production of Bella Vista Community Television.